It is not unknown that gun violence is a major problem worldwide, and especially in America. Yet, what is not known is why gun violence is such a problem. What is gun violence anyway? Gun violence is defined by the Gun Violence Archive as the result of all incidents of death or injury or threat with firearms without pejorative judgment. Gun violence affects anyone and everyone in the world, yet it affects countries that produce more guns, meaning the bigger the gun production in the country released to the general population, the more exposed you are to be a victim or a perpetrator of gun violence. The top 5 countries that experience the most gun violence are, in order, Brazil, the United States, India, Mexico, and Colombia. One of the big questions concerning gun violence, especially when it ends in death, is what are the root causes and events in a perpetrator's life that leads them to commit such a horrible crime? Originally, it was thought that mental illness played a big role in committing gun violence, yet only 3 to 5% of gun violence events are attributed to mental illness. Instead, substance and drug abuse accounts for a large population of people who commit these crimes, rather than mental illness itself. Something we don't think about as being a large part of gun violence is suicide. In the US alone, 2/3 of gun violence is a result of suicide. Most people who attempt suicide don't die unless they use a gun. Across all suicide attempts not involving a firearm, 4% will result in death. But for gun suicide, those statistics are flipped. 90% of gun suicide attempts end in death. So what can we do about this? Although we would like to keep people who are prone to harming themselves and others away from guns, that is not always possible according to the lack of gun laws, especially in the United States. The only way we can decrease the amount of gun violence is limiting the source of the problem, which is guns. In America, it is very easy to get a gun. This is protected by the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Although it varies state by state, most states have very swift ways of background checking gun owners that are very easy to get around. Another way is buying guns from the gun show or third-party sellers. Under federal law, third-party sellers aren't required to record sale, ask for identification, or perform background checks. Lastly, there's little consistency between the states. 35 out of 50 states don't require gun owners to hold a license, obtain a purchase payment, or register their weapons.
There are many organizations working to end gun violence. Out of those, 2 of the most prominent organizations are Everytown for Gun Safety and Brady United Against Gun Violence. Everytown for Gun Safety is a nonprofit that was created in 2013 after Mayors Against Illegal Guns and Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense joined together. They advocate for gun control and against gun violence at both national and local levels. Local chapters will host events and push their local leaders to take action, while the national level pushes our federal government leaders to enact change. Everytown is especially known for getting youth involved in gun reform activism. Their core issues are better background checks, disarming domestic abusers, combating daily gun violence, protecting kids and communities, and holding the gun industry accountable. Brady United Against Gun Violence, formerly known as the National Council to Control Handguns, was founded in 1974 by Dr. Mark Berinsky. The organization is named in honor of former White House Press Secretary Jim Brady, who was shot and injured during President Reagan's assassination attempt. The members of Brady are focused on the legal aspect of gun reform. They have an extensive legal team named the Brady Legal Alliance, which is composed of hundreds of attorneys and law firms across the nation. When fighting gun violence, they keep 3 things in mind: holding the gun industry accountable, showing that nobody's above the law, and most of all, protecting American lives. Both organizations remain active today. A Catholic teaching that relates to our issue is Commandment number 5, "You shall not kill." This commandment coincides with the teaching that all life has value. Gun violence often results in the death of an individual or individuals. Therefore, it is a danger to human life and does not respect its value. A document that relates to our issue was released by the Catholic News Agency and is titled, "What the Church Does and Does Not Teach About Gun Control." The document outlines the right to bear arms, self-defense, and what we should do as Catholics in response to gun violence. A quote from the document that encapsulates Catholic teaching is, "The production and the sale of arms affect the common good of nations and of the international community, hence public authorities have the right and duty to regulate them. The short-term pursuit of private or collective interests cannot legitimate undertakings that promote violence and undermine the international juridical order." It is stated in paragraph 2316 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
You might be asking yourself, what is the solution to gun violence? While that is a hard question to answer, we have come up with ways to decrease the amount of gun violence occurring in our world and how to help treat the victims of said gun violence. The first and easiest thing that can be done is to raise awareness for the problem specifically to legislators. Gun violence is rooted and connected to the law due to the lack of training and permits needed to own a gun in certain states. So contacting legislators and pushing for stronger gun laws and restrictions is the first step to lessening gun violence. Anyone, including youth, can do this, and it's as easy as writing a simple letter or email to a legislator explaining why you think the law should change. Another thing we can do is provide support groups for those who have already been affected by gun violence. This will give a safe space to the victims of gun violence to connect and relate to each other and work to overcome the trauma they have been through.
Such a passion for the moms because there was nobody there for me. It just wasn't. Once I kind of developed strength, and again from that inner faith, like I said, I vowed to myself, if I ever ran across somebody who had went through something that I went through, I promise, I will be there with them and walk them step by step. You know, I don't tell them quit crying, it's gonna be all right. You know, it's gonna get a little better as you go. I don't say all that. Girl, if you want to kick that damn TV over, throw that glass through the cabinet, do it. Because this is a pain and a memory that nobody wants to fathom.
Remember to let your voice be heard, because change starts with us.